Hey everyone, I'm back for another reading today, but before I start I wanted to explain the cards I'm using, and these are the CROWLEY deck designed by CROWLEY, and some of you may have heard of him. He doesn't have a particularly fine reputation. He was a very wealthy man born in 1875, so he came of age around the turn of the century into the 1920s and 30s. And it was an era where the wealthy, and he was the wealthy son of Plymouth Brethren brewers apparently, but the aristocracy embraced him. And again, as many of you probably know, the aristocracy were very active at that time. They were very interested in the occult. They were fascinated by alchemy. They were always trying to find ways to turn lead into gold and the secret of immortality and so on. But they were also immensely interested in Egypt, particularly after the tomb of Tutankhamun was discovered. And so CROWLEY's deck was designed with a lot of Egyptian motifs. And I think many of the cards are very beautiful. And I only found these recently when I was moving house. I don't use them as a rule. I haven't used them for many years, and I certainly don't use them for personal readings for people because they can be quite heavy. But I think they do have something to offer. So I thought, who will I read on with the CROWLEY deck? And I thought, someone who's been very disappointing and creepy who sprang to mind was General Kelly. So apart from originally defending Rob Porter, he's known for months apparently that he was a wife beater. Kelly is not a nice man. He does not have a nice soul. And don't forget, he was in charge of Homeland Security, like evicting undocumented immigrants. Some people might think that's a good thing. Personally, I don't. I think it should be on merit. You know, if people have worked hard for years and have no criminal convictions and have raised children to be respectful and hardworking, that should be an ingredient for becoming a citizen. He doesn't think so. He's been quoted as saying, some illegals are so lazy they couldn't even be bothered applying for citizenship. That's not true and not the case. And he's proved not only to be ineffectual as keeping Trump in check as chief of staff. I heard a commentator say just today that he in fact brings out the worst in Trump because he actually shares some of Trump's more grotesque points of view and his most ill thought out positions on things. So I'm really not happy with General Kelly. So I thought he's a good candidate for these cards. So as you know, generally viewers, I'm not known for being famously impartial. That's not what these readings are about. I have another identity as a tarot reader who is more impartial, but this is not it. And so I'm going to see what's now on the cards for General Kelly. General John Kelly. I'm just going to do a 7-card reading on him. Okay. For those of you who are interested and might have missed it, I did a video some time ago which I called the Darth Vader of the West Wing for Kelly, but this is an update because things have moved a long way since then. So let's see what's happening for Kelly in relation. This deck is also called the Book of Thoth because of the Egyptian references. Oh. Okay. I think this is an extremely potent reading, and as I warned you before I started, some of these cards are very dark, but there's also a fantastic mix in a deck of 78 cards, and there are some luminous, wonderful cards in the Book of Thoth, this deck. But these aren't those. Oh, wow. So his first major card is, here we have the 7 of discs, as they're called in this deck, or pentacles in the other. Failure. This is failure. He's on the nose. It's not just me being a bitch. People are most concerned about him and his role in the White House, and frankly, I'm not surprised. I think, before I go any further with these, you'd have to say he's burnt some bridges. He's burnt a lot of bridges, and Trump is apparently looking for another chief of staff. He has failed. It's exactly what I said in the introduction. He hasn't been able to convert from being a military man into a political animal. So in that sense, failure. So we've now come to a couple of swords cards. And the first one is the 3 of swords. And it is called in the Thoth deck sorrow. So one would think he is a man who's accomplished a lot in his life, and I think he'd be quite shocked that he hasn't been a success in this role. And for him personally, this represents a certain sorrow. The 9 of swords is the card of cruelty. And again, as I said in my introduction, he's a very hard, cruel man. I think more hard and more cruel than many of us realised. So this bears out the adage that you can't hide from the tarot. This is followed up with the Prince of Discs, or Pentacles, Prince of Pentacles. The cards at this point sort of lighten up marginally now. It's a very funny reading. Okay, the Prince of Pentacles is a powerful person with a youthful energy. I think this might have been either him when he was younger, or an energy that he is channeling now in this role, and it hasn't quite worked for him. I don't know with this lighting, it's yet another experimental thing. The figure is driving a bull. Enormous power of the bull that he had in his hands, whether the bull is Trump or just generally in life, he's taken charge. He's a go-to guy, not mysterious, he's a general. There's the globe here. He's not afraid of power, he seeks power, all right? Now the next one, given that he started with failure on top, this is success. So how does he measure his sorrow or his disappointment here against success? And I think, oh, this light shining on this, he might be able to pull it back from the brink, except for these following cards. So in other words, he is juggling failure and success. So it might be that he's perceived himself as a success and other people are reading him as a failure as a chief of staff. He still has his prestigious career to fall back on. So maybe that's what is being indicated by the Success card here. Now we have the Empress, which again is usually quite a positive female card, a very strong woman. It's also come up a lot in the Ivanka readings. So I think he is not that popular with Ivanka. I think she might have thought he was a good idea at the beginning, and I think from memory she was instrumental in that appointment. I can't remember, one of you might be able to pick me up on that. But I strongly feel this is Ivanka. So it might be a second hand in Trump's ear. Trump is definitely wanting to get rid of him. And I'm wondering if it's not Ivanka pressing for this. His outcome card is the Tower. So basically, if you want to have an autograph taken with General Kelly as Chief of Staff, you better do it very soon, because he's not going to be there for long. So the Tower, we all know about, radical change and radical upheaval with what has gone before. So not surprisingly, this was a somewhat dark reading, but I'm not altogether surprised. I think General Kelly is one of those guys, the more you know about him, the less you like him. And this has proven to be the case. But what I would like to do now is to finish off with a short reading while I've got these cards out and about. A very short reading on Paul Ryan. Now, Paul Ryan, I think he's one of those guys too that is like a baby-faced assassin, isn't he, really? If you were standing next to him in a queue, you think this guy's quite nice. He seems reasonable in some ways, but he's not. He's very hard line. And one of the more disappointing stories I heard recently that was publicised about Paul Ryan was he addressed a group of dreamers, and one woman approached him very upset as a dreamer and very worried about her future and the future for her children, and he reassured her, this was a few months ago, he reassured her that this would be a bipartisan issue largely, and that those who had worked hard and deserved a path to citizenship could rely on him to back that. He actually said it to her, he eyeballed her and said it to her, and then he goes away and does what he does. This is someone who, again, looks okay, but doesn't bat an eyelid about cutting Medicaid and other social services. So while I'm dealing with the Toast deck, let's have a quick look at Paul Ryan. A little update on Paul Ryan. Okay. He got the same card as Kelly, cruelty. I don't know, maybe I'm just channeling this negative streak. I'm sorry if this is too negative for you. But trust me, a tarot reading that's negative is not nearly as bad as wondering if you are going to be arrested in the middle of the night and hauled out of bed with your children after you've lived in a country for 30 years. So, what's going on for him? Okay, the rest of the reading is not quite so dark. Paul, I'm going to resign soon, Rome. Okay, remember a few months ago he was going to walk away, and it would have been a smart move to walk away then when he was thinking about it and talking about it. Okay, so what do we have now? Well, now we have the Queen of Pentacles and the Three of Pentacles and the Queen of Cups. So we've got two queens here. So the Queen of Pentacles, sorry, I'm not showing you these cards. The Queen of Discs, as it's called in this, or the Queen of Pentacles. Can you see it? A woman who's very involved with money and motivated by money and has power through money. I wonder who this is. It could be a senior Republican donor who loves him. It could be his wife who doesn't want him to leave yet because she enjoys the power of the position. I'm not quite sure at this stage. The Three of Discs, or the Three of Pentacles, is often about group work and group decisions about money. And remembering the Republican Party has always prided itself on being the party that's fiscally responsible. They're the grown-ups. And now they've got the Queen of Cups, generally, not just Paul Ryan, but the Republicans. So they're making all these emotional decisions about money that in previous generations and previous incarnations of Republicans have fought to, you know, bring down the debt and stuff. Mind you, lest we forget, they never have, because they always end up with a war, and wars cost a fortune. So you get the Halliburtons and people who make personal fortunes out of war, but the country, even the winning country, loses money, and America hasn't won a war for 60 years. So there's part of this myth of the Republicans being responsible for money. So they hate it when the Democrats want to spend on the poor and the disabled and helping people and subsidising education. They hate it. Give them a good war and off they go. So emotionally, they've been dragged into this financial nightmare. The Chariot, which is recognisably similar to the Rider-Waite deck, charging forth. So this would indicate to me too that he's going to actually stay for a while and fight, I think, unless he's eliminated through other purposes. I guess what I'm trying to say is he, a few months ago, had a decision to walk away or not. Now he might be pushed, but if he isn't pushed out, he's got to fight like hell, A, to keep his position, and B, to stop some of this radical behaviour of other Republicans. Whether he's up to that job or not is anyone's guess. So now we have the Seven of Swords. In the Crowley deck, it's described as futility. And that would kind of make sense to me because of what I just described he's trying to do and why he's staying, but he's not going to be able to pull it off. The final card here, although I'm going to pull another one or two because I just feel this story isn't finished. In the Crowley deck, it's called Art. It's called Strength in the other packs. So he has got strength and endurance. He's a political animal. Unlike Kelly, who's a militaristic man, he's a political creature through and through. Okay. So let's see what else is coming up for him. Oh, Oh, interesting. Yeah, he's got a very positive card here with the Ace of Swords, right? So, although what he's trying to do appears to be futile, he has got strength and perseverance. He could still come out as the radiant one who saves the Republicans. It's my feel on this in terms of Paul Ryan's reading. And this card is the truce card. So in other words, I think they're going to fight themselves to a standstill, and there will be some sort of truce with the Republicans. So as I sit here making this reading, it's night in Australia. There's just been a second government shutdown. These shutdowns, I don't understand it. And I'm sure I'm not alone. Not only when the Republicans control everything, but also I don't know of any other country in the world outside of banana republics that limp like this. Why don't you have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year budgets? What is this about? So some sort of truce, that could be short term, meaning getting the government going tomorrow, or it could be longer term. He might turn out to be smarter than I've given him credit for and actually negotiate some sort of a truce. We'll have to wait and see. So, once again, thank you for your comments. I always find them really interesting and compelling, and I type replies. I don't know if you ever see them, but I do type replies to a lot of them. And so thank you so much for the regulars, particularly those who pull me up on certain things, or those who offer additional information and even different ideas of what the cards represent. I'm fine with all that. I see it as a reciprocal relationship. So thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.